All right, Jyoti, you got,
Yep.
I think you are the host now. Yeah.
Correct.
See how easily we can transfer the power,
Namaskar,
right? With us. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhuvah Swaha, Tatsavitra Vareneyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, मृत्योर्मा अमृतं कन्या ओम सहना भवतु सहना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहि तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहि ओम शांति 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 ओम. Today's Vivekachudamani day, and we ended our class, last week's class, on verse number 66. So today is 67. So any question, comment before we start? Otherwise, I'll just start with 67. Yatavyaha adhye krita prishnaha variyan shastra vinmataha sutra prayaha nigurartha cha gyatavya mumukshubhi. So if you remember verse number 49, the student asked questions, several questions, and then Rishi started answering those questions. And now over here, he's again praising the student, the way the student asked the questions. And then he's going to continue answering those questions again. So ya means whichever. Tavya means by you. Adhye. Adhye means today. Krita. Krita means done or made. Prashnaha. Questions. Varyan. Excellent. Shastra Vinmataha, by those well versed in the scriptures. Sutra Praya, in the form of the sutra, aphorism. So it's like a aphoristic. Ni Gurarthaha, deep meanings. Cha means and, Gyatavyaha, fit to be known. Mumukshubhi, by the seekers. So Guru is saying, the questions that you have asked today are excellent. And it is approved by those well versed in the scriptures. So the people who know the scriptures, they say these are good questions. They are just like a sutra. Your questions are also like a sutra. That means, sutra means it's brief, well formed, and deep with meanings also. All who seek liberation should know these questions. So these questions are that important. The way he put the questions also, the way he formed the questions also. So this Guru is appreciating the student, almost complimenting the student on the intelligence of his questions and the beauty and the precision that graces the very form in which they are framed. Let me just take you back to those questions, how he asked. He said, what is bondage? This was verse number 49. Ko naam bandha, katham esh agata. How has it come? How does it continue to exist? How can one get out of it completely? What is the not self? Who is the supreme self? What is the process of discrimination between these two, self and not self? Please explain all these to me. So this was the verse where questions were asked. Altogether 7 questions. So while he is complimenting the disciple, it's like advice to us also, that how to ask a question, how to approach a guru. We should not destroy the sanctity of the atmosphere of the place. The kind of sentiments we take over there is very important. Okay, so that's why these topics are very, all the questions were very well put. So let's look at next verse. After this teacher praised the student, what else he is saying? Shrinushvah avhita vidvan yat maya samudirte tat etat shravanat bhavanat bhavbandhanat vimokshya se sadhya. Shri Shrinushva. That means listen, like a Shrinu, listen. Avhita, attentively. Vidvan, the learned seeker, like a Vidwan. Maya, by me, samudriyate, is enunciated. Tat means that, etat shravanat, by hearing this. Sadhya, sadhya means immediately. Bhav bandhanat, from bondage of sansar, this transmigration. Vimokshya se, you shall be liberated completely. So he says, listen attentively. Okay, Shrinushva avhita, listen attentively. O learned one, to what I say, by listening, you will immediately be freed from the bonds of worldly existence. So this Shankaracharya ji is giving the student full assurance that if he listens attentively, and it's not only listening attentively has a deeper meaning. That really means realize the subtle meanings in the words of the teacher. A sense of complete meaning behind the words also, not just only the words, but the meaning behind the words also. So literal word meaning do not convey the right philosophical implications. So listening attentively, there is a different meaning than listening alone. So the mere listening cannot be the path, but listening attentively. That means we must understand that the word listening, which he is using over here, is definitely deeper. It's very essential to be in tune with the teacher. It's like a connection has to be there. And how does that connection come? Through self-discipline. If the self-discipline is there, only then our inner kingdom can be clean and peaceful. Because if there is already churning going on inside us, we are not being in tune with the teacher. Calmness has to be there. And calmness can be there if there is a devotion for the teacher. If there's a humility in our personality also, only then there will be a receptivity and alertness. So when this kind of a student listens to the inspired words of the master, full of the subtle suggestions, he within himself starts living the implications which are being taught through the scriptures. So that means we got to prepare our mind first. So the practices of reflection and meditation, concentration, devotion, self-control, brahmacharya, moral purity, ethical goodness, all of that we need to do. It's not just only listening and then we will get liberated from this cycle. Okay? So remember that. Now in the next verse, verse number 69, he says, Mokshasya hetu prathmo nigadhyate vairagyam atyantam anitye vastushu tatha shama cha api dama titiksha nyasaha prasakt akhil karma nam bhrisham. Mokshasya for liberation. Because he mentioned the word moksha in the last verse. Or he has been saying it, mumukshu, that desire to be liberated also. That is one of the qualifications. Moksha for liberation, hetu, cause for. Okay, cause, basically cause for the confusion of mind. Hetu. Prathmaha, first. Nigadyate is considered vairagyam atyantam, extreme detachment. Atyant vairagya. Not just a superficial vairagya, atyant vairagya. Anitya vastushu, impermanent things. So vairagya is always of the impermanent thing, the temporary things. Tataha, then, shamaha, calmness. Cha means and, api means also, dam, self-control. Titiksha, endurance, forbearance. Nyasaha, renunciation. Prasat akhil karma naam, selfish actions. Brisham, completely. For liberation, first comes extreme detachment from finite objects of sensual satisfaction. Then follow calmness, self-control, forbearance, and complete renunciation of all selfish actions. So over here, Acharya Shankaracharya ji is enumerating the conditions of the mind where the true wisdom can blaze forth. So he says complete detachment is important, but capacity to be completely detached from the craving for the things known to be finite and perishable is most important. See, this is called Vairagya. So that's why he said Vairagyam Atyantam. So we got to work on that. That's the sadhana. Keep on making your Vairagya intense. A Vivek can grow. Vivek is what? Discrimination. Right? Vivek. A Vivek can grow and fulfill itself only where there is Vairagya. Okay? So we cannot really understand. If we are attached to the lower, we really don't know where we are going. And Vivek is that capacity which really takes us up. But we got to detach from the lower. So without developing sufficient disinterest in the acquisition, possession, and enjoyment of the sense objects of the world, we really cannot enter into the areas of the true wisdom. So we got to see that. Check inside us. Do we have these qualities? Sham, Dam, Tatiksha. It was not just only in the beginning. Throughout our life, we have to keep on cultivating these qualities. Keep an eye on these qualities so that our own discipline can become stronger and stronger. When there is a detachment as a result of pure discrimination, there will be a better balance in our intellect. And when this intellect is reinforced by self-control, calmness, forbearance, then we'll see that there's no egoistic desires are being prompted. So that's why he mentioned over here, Prasat Akhil Karma Nama Brisham. The selfish actions, completely they are gone then. There's no selfishness. It's not that the person is not acting, but most of the actions are, it's like a yajna, helping others. Actions are being done, but not selfishly. It's only for the others. It's not that a person is sitting like a stone now, like a rock now. No, person is extremely active. But where can I help? Helping society at large. That kind of action. Yajna Rupi actions. Okay, so let me read it again. I think this is because see, if we just look at only one verse, like a previous verse, a person might think that, okay, all right, I'm going to just listen and I have listened enough. I am fit for moksha. But over here, he clarifies it further. It's not listening alone. You got to keep on working on these qualities also. Vairagya also, Sham also, Dam also, Titiksha also, and Vivek also. Got to keep on working on these qualities. Number 70. Tata Shritihi Tat Mananam Sa Tat Dhyanam Chiram Nitya Nirantaram Mune Tatha Avikalpam Param Ete Vidwan Ih Ev Nirvana Sukham Samrichati. Tatha, Tatha means thereafter. Thereafter means after those qualities. Shruti, hearing. Tat Mananam, reflection after that. You remember Shravan and Manan. So Tattva Dhyanam, meditation on the truth. Chiram, for a long time. Nitya Nirantaram, constant and unbroken. Mune, for the Muni. Muni is a wise person. Tataha, thereafter. Avikalpam, state free from fluctuation. Avikalpam. So vikalp is a fluctuation. Avikalp, free from fluctuation. Param means supreme. Ete means having reached. Vidwan, the seeker. See, Vidwan becomes a Muni. Okay, Vidwan is a learned person, a seeker. Muni is a step up. Ih ev, here itself. Nirvan Sukham, the bliss of Nirvan. Nirvan means liberation. Samrichati, realized. So thereafter comes hearing. Thereafter means after having those qualities, Shamadam, etc. comes hearing. Because if we try to hear the scriptures before we have those qualities, they are not going to make any difference. But thereafter comes hearing, then reflection on what has been heard, and lastly, long, constant, and continuous meditation on the truth. That is called nididhyasan. For the Muni, ultimately, that learned one attains the supreme nirvikalp state. So, avikalp, nirvikalp, it's the same thing, without any fluctuations, and realizes the bliss of nirvana in this very life. So, this is you can call it a Jivan Mukta state also. You still have this body, you are living in this body, but blissfully. And where is the bliss coming from? Because there's no vikalaps anymore. Those thoughts which were bothering, the attachment with this finite world, now there's no attachment. You are still in this world, but this world doesn't have power over you. You have risen above it. That's what he's telling us. So in this shalok, the Acharya is outlining the different stages of practices, which we all need to follow. After letting go of the desire prompted, ego prompted activities, what do we need to do? That's what he's telling us. Keep on cultivating your detachment. Atyant vairagya. Atyant vairagya. Okay. So it's very important that we must listen. Because if we don't listen to the Guru, listen to study the scriptures, we won't even know what to do. So that's why he said, Tata Shruti. We must listen to the teachings. My own Guruji used to say there must be at least one scriptural text from a true teacher. If you do that, study the one scripture at the feet of the Guru, then you are ready. Because these scriptures, they are long also. There's a lot of guidance in there. And then when we learn it with a total humility and a devotion and a love, and there's a discipline also, then we are ready. That doesn't mean our job is done, but at least we have enrolled ourselves. So that's why they say listening to the discourses to be followed by the reflection. And then after that, practice also. Practice. Okay. So all the three are very important. So when he says chiram, chiram means for a long period of years. And nityam means daily. Nirantar means constantly. Then you get established in the God consciousness and attain nirvana. So moksha condition or condition of liberation is possible in two stages. Two stages. See, just like when we sleep, before sleep, there is a period of dozing, followed by the deep sleep. The same thing happens in liberation also. First, there's a savikalp samadhi, then there's a nirvikalp samadhi. These are the two stages I'm talking about. So in a meditation also, in samadhi also, there's a hazy period of awareness where we are conscious of ourselves, nearing the transcendental state. And that is the stage which is called Savikalp Samadhi. Thoughts are there, thoughts are definitely about God, but thoughts are there. We have not transcended that mind yet. Mind has become pure, but still there are some fluctuations. But when a yogi has that egoless moment, the experiences of the infinite bliss of the pure existence only, nothing else anymore. That's called a Nirvikalp Samadhi. This is the experience of Godhood. Then you have the Ishwar Darshan. Once you have an Ishwar Darshan, then there's no falling back into the finite world, the worldly life. You could be from outside, you are still in the worldly life, but internally, nothing shakes you. So that's why Shankaracharya is insisting over here. He says, a Muni experiences the bliss of Nirvana even here and now. Muni. Muni, the definition of Muni is a man of a discriminative reflection. Mananashil. Muni. So he is insisting that we keep on working like this. Hearing, so like a listening, and then reflecting and meditating. And then he keeps on telling us that we have to cultivate those qualities also, Sham, Dham, Uprati, all those, the Tiksha, those also, hand in hand. Then what happens? Yat bodhavyam tav idanim atam anatma vivechanam tat uchyate maya samyak shrutva atmani avadharya. This is number 71. Yat means whichever. Bodhavyam, to be known. Tav means to you. Idanim, now. Atma, anatma, vivechanam. Discrimination between the self and the not self. And what is not self? Anything which is not the self is not self. Starting from this body, self is the Atma. Everything else over here is not self. Everything. That means that, Uchate means is described, Maya by me, Samyak, clearly, Shrutva, listening to that, Atmani, in the mind, Avadharye, decide well. Now I'm going to describe the discrimination between the self and the not self. Most elaborately. It is what you ought to know. Listen to it properly and receive it well in your mind. So he's saying that I am going to further elaborate, not just the body and the Atma, I'm going to give you the details about it so that you know it fully. We'll see that this verse onwards, Shankaracharya is giving a very elaborate description of the various layers of our body. Various layers. Because we are bound with this body. So that's why he wants to just make sure that we know it completely, that this is not you. No matter how deep of the layer is, still it's not you. And over here, he is stressing the importance of the theme of discussion by saying that each student should Listen it carefully. And then must come through a process of independent Vivek. It's like a discriminative self-analysis. Don't just hear and then accept. Try to analyze it for your own also. Only then you will have a firm conviction of the truth, what is being discussed. Okay, so that's why he said, ought to know. It is what you ought to know. Listen to it properly and receive it well in your own mind. Okay, pay attention to it. So now let's look at, he talks about the gross body first. Majjaha, asthihi, medaha, pal, rakt, चर्म, त्वग, आवाहे, एभी धातु भी अनिवंतम, पादोर वक्षोः भुज पृष्ठ मस्कः, अंगे उपंगे अपयुक्तम एतत्. Majja is a marrow, like a bone marrow. Asthi is bones. Meda means a fat. Pal means flesh. Rakt is blood. Charm means the dermis, skin. And twag means epidermis. Okay, so known as, ahai means known as. So known as marrow, bones, fat, flesh, blood, dermis, and epidermis. This is the first line. AB means these. Dhatu bhi, ingredients. Anivantam, composed of. Now he starts. See, first he just talked about the details about the skin and the blood. Now he's talking about the body parts also. Pador vakshoho bhuj prisht mastake. This is the third line. Legs, thighs, chest. So vaksh is the chest, pad is pado, legs and the feet. Ur means thighs. Bhuja, arms. Prisht, back. Mastak means head. Ange, upange, and their parts. Upayuktam, united with. Etat means this. So he's saying composed of these substances, marrow, bones, fat, flesh, blood, dermis, epidermis, and consisting of the following parts: legs, thighs, chest, arms, back, and head. What is this? In the next verse, he gives us a further explanation. Aham mam iti prathitam shariram mohaspadaम स्थूलम इति ईयते बुधै नभोन वस्व दह अंभु भूम्याः सूक्ष्मानि भूतानि भवन्ति तानि. So this body, the seat of delusion. Aham mam iti. Aham means I, mam means mine, iti means thus. See, this is the delusion. We think this is me. Prathitam, expressed. Shariram, the body. Mohaspadam, the seat of delusion, moha. So thulam, gross. Iti means thus, iyate is considered. Buddhai, by wise person. Then in the next big word, he's talking about these 5 elements: the space, air, fire, water, and earth. Nabho, nabhasva, dahan, ambu, bhumya. In that order: space, air, fire, water, and earth. Sukshamani, subtle. Bhutani, elements. Bhavanti means are. Tani means they. So this body, the seat of delusion, expressing in terms of I and mine, is termed by reputed sages as the gross body. Because sages know this is not mine and this is not I. Gross body. Sky, air, fire, water, and earth are the subtle elements. So this is all made up of those subtle elements. The whole body, whether it's a blood or it's a marrow or a bone or a skin, whatever it is in this body, this is not me and this is not mine either. Because anything which is mine, I should be able to take it with me. It doesn't belong to us, it belongs to the Prakriti. We have borrowed it from the Prakriti to use it for certain time. And we promise it to the Prakriti that as long as I'm using it, I will use it without getting attached to it. But we forget that. We think this is all we are. Or a little above we go, we say, no, this is not who I am, but I own this definitely. But over here, they're making it very clear for us. This body, the seat of the delusion, expressing in terms of I and mine, the reputed sages say, Buddhe. Buddhe means those wise people, people who have really experienced this. They say that this gross body, sky, air, fire, water, and earth are the subtle elements. So in these two verses, Shankaracharya is describing the gross body. Okay, layer by layer, cross-section of this body, physical body. Okay, and then we all have studied this in our science classes. Even if we are not the doctors, we are familiar with this, at least the basic layers of this skin also, and whatever is inside also. But all our I-ness and my-ness function from the headquarters of the physical body. Okay, so we got to, that's what he's really keep on repeating so that we understand this. So the five great elements are described as first created in the subtle form. That's why he's telling the subtle body. They are created in the subtle form, and then through a process of combinations among themselves, they become the gross elements. See, before we see the gross elements, they are in the subtle form. So he's talking about first they are in the subtle form. So we can perceive them only when they have become gross. So this skin also, it was in the subtle form first, but then later on it became gross, and then we can see that. And the process by which these subtle elements become perceivable to the gross elements is described in the next verse. See, I mean, look at it, how much effort these rishis have gone through so that we can understand what this is. We're going to do the next verse and then we'll stop it here. Okay, and then we can have some discussion. So he says, Praspara anshahi militani bhutva sathulani cha sathul sharir hetva matra tadiya vishya bhavanti shabd adya panch sukhaye bhogtuhu. Praspar anshahe, with parts of one another. Okay, it's almost like when they multiply with the other parts. So with parts of one another. Militani, united, combining. Bhutva, having become sthulani cha, gross forms. Sathul sharir hetva, the cause of the gross body. Matra, subtle essence, tadiya, of them, vishyaha, sense objects. Bhavanti, become, shabd adya, sound, etc. Panch, five in number, sukhaye, for the happiness, bhog tu, of the experiencer. So over here he is mentioning this process by which the subtle elements become the five gross elements. Okay, so having united with parts of one another, they become gross and become the cause for the formation of the gross body. Their subtle essence constitutes the sense objects, five in number, such as a sound, etc., which contribute to the enjoyment of the experiencer, the individual ego. Okay, this whole scheme of uniting together, there is a technical term for it which is called panchikaran. So these are five elements. And this process, I will just put a diagram. I'll give it to Jyoti. She'll just put it in the handouts over there. Okay, then you will understand how there are stages of it. So there are five of them. And then first they divide, then they subdivide, then they further divide, and then they get connected with the others. That's what's called panchikaran. Panchikaran. And then when he talks about the vishya, that really means the tanmatras over here. The power behind these elements. See, he mentions only the sound. Sound is a tanmatra of space. So all these five, they have the tanmatras. Okay, so each one of them. So ether, air, fire, water, and earth, they all have the tanmatras. So each tanmatra, like a unit of each of the five elements, in the first stage, so there are stages. In the first stage, they divide itself, each one of them, the tanmatras. Then the second stage, each tanmatra of the five elements bifurcates and separates into two equal parts. So it's like almost they're separate from each other. Then in the third stage, one half of all these five elements stays intact and the other half gets divided into four equal parts. And then in the fourth stage, that each half tanmatra combines with the 1/8 tanmatra of the other elements. That's how the grossification happens. Okay, you will see that. I mean, right now, I'm sure you're confused, but once you see the picture of it, I'll just draw it stage by stage, and you will see that, yeah, because in the subtle form, we don't see. But the grossification happens with this panchikara, this process. And that's what Shankaracharya is mentioning. He's only mentioning it here. He's not giving the description of it, but I think it's good to know the description also. Okay, because this word panchikaran comes in a lot of other Upanishads also. So the process from the subtle to the gross is called panchikaran. That is the name of it. Okay, so panchikaran. So out of the gross elements to the physical body is formed. See, otherwise we say that, yeah, this body, how can you say that there are all five elements in there? We don't see it, but all five are in there. And this grossification happened. So this is in the nature, God has created this in the nature. It happens automatically, but this is how it happens. Okay, but at the end he says the enjoyer, or even the sufferer, I should say, is the ego. It's a self-conditioned by the mind and the intellect. And that's how we get bondaged. We get bondage because we think that we are this body, or we have the body. It's my body. So enjoyment or the suffering happens from there. So we'll see that we'll start the class with 75, verse number 75 next week. So now I think I should let you guys ask some questions also. Even though Shankaracharya is going through a lot of detail, but still everything, there could be some questions also. Yes, Jyoti.
Nirja.
नमस्कार हर्ष जी.
Namaskar, Nirja.
ये पंचीकरण.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain it one more time? I understand the part where tanmatra is divided into.
Yeah. What happens is, there are stages to it. So it says like a first, remember that all five are separate. That's a description like a ether, air, fire, water, earth. Then it gets divided into two parts. Just remember that the way I'm going to describe is like a circle. The circle gets divided into two. Then they get separate from each other. Then one stays complete, one half, the other half gets divided into four. Then that 1/4, which is like a 1/8, I should say, goes to the other half. That's how it just becomes from subtle to grosser with this process. So this process is called Panchikaran. Okay.
So from grosser to subtle is Panchikaran.
Panchikaran, yes. And Panch, why the Panch? Because there are five, that's why.
Yeah.
Okay. So Panchikaran. Okay. Yes, Jill.
Thank you.
Sujata?
I'm sorry, I misheard that. It's from subtle to gross is Panchikaran, right?
Yeah. Subtle to gross.
Yeah, I think you said it the other way around just now.
Yeah, no. No, it's a subtle because first it's in the subtle form.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry about that. It's a subtle from subtle to the gross because gross we can see.
Right.
By the time it has become gross, we can perceive only the gross. Right. So by the time it has become gross, it has gone through this process of Panchikaran. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Sujata.
No, one or two other words I just wanted to clarify. It's prashakta is selfish.
Yes. Which verse is that?
That is in 69.
Oh, 69, all the way there. Okay, let me just go back and just make sure that.
Attached.
It's like a prasakt akhil karmanam. So prasakt really means the selfish, and akhil means all, and karam is actions. Okay.
That's what I got. And then avadharyate again is in verse 71 is realize well.
Let me see. Go back to that also. So 71 avadharya. Avadharya means when you decide something completely. So that's why I said you have decided dharan kar lena, avadharya.
Okay, so receive
decided it or put into, when you put something into something, that is a dharya. So avadharya. So putting it properly. So we have decided, where did we put it this time? In the mind, right? So avadharya. So decided well.
Those are my two words.
Yeah, no, good. Anybody else? No? So many, if you can play some chanting for us.
Okay.
Manju has a question. Manju?
Me, Hershi.
Hanji.
Namaste. Where you first mentioned, so is first you have to have Vairagya, then only the Vivek comes, or the Vivek comes first and Vairagya comes later?
Actually, you know,
that's what you said.
To me, sometimes in Shankaracharya ji says Vairagya first. Sometimes he says
Okay.
Vivek. But to me, I think they
whatever I guess
go
cause
hand
is
in hand. It's not that we have
I thought
the peak of the Vairagya and then Vivek gonna come. No. To me, I think we just keep on working on both. I always look at it the way we make a rope. If they are making a rope with 2 strands, we got to keep on working with both the hands.
Okay.
So that's how Vivek and Vairagya works. Okay.
Okay.
So because without Vivek, we wouldn't know from where to have the detachment. Vairagya is the detachment. And then if we don't have a detachment, we won't even know the higher levels of Vivek. So they complement each other.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but right.
Yeah. But we mention here and there, sometimes this, sometimes that. But to me, I think that ultimately it really means both.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And then when he uses the word atyant, that means we got to keep on working on it. We cannot just relax. No, I am Vairagi now. Or I'm Viveki now. They both keep on, we keep on inching up to the higher ladders. Yes, Jyoti.
When?
Hanji, thank you, Jyoti. Hershi, verse 70, you said Muni is somebody, there's a word you use, Muni of something reflection. What is that word?
70?
Hanji.
Yeah, Muni is a person who does the a man of discriminative reflection is called a Muni.
What is discriminative?
Discriminative, that is a Vivek. To be able to discriminate between the right and wrong, to be able to discriminate between the higher and lower. So a person who can reflect on it is a Muni. Okay. Yeah, because normally people think Muni is a person who is wearing orange clothes or white clothes or no clothes.
Yeah.
Or having some tilks on, or doesn't live in the house, doesn't do a job. No, Muni is a person who has reached to this level of discrimination, the Vivek.
Discrimination, somehow I didn't quite get
discrimination. Yeah, discrimination word is for that. Philosophically, discrimination means that ordinarily we say, oh, a person who discriminates is not good.
No, that's different
discrimination world differently. Over here, discrimination means a person who can see it clearly.
See right from wrong.
Yeah, right from wrong, true from false.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's why this language sometimes throws us off. Okay, but I'm glad you guys are paying attention and asking questions and understanding it. Okay, Manny, if you can, if nobody else has a question.
Hershi, just one quick comment. Once in the past, you had told us a Muni is a poet.
Kavi is a poet.
Kavi is a poet, but is Muni, no.
No, Muni is not. Muni can be a poet, but normally Muni word is not used for the poet. Kavi word is used for poet.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Manny.